Give me an exciting action movie trailer riff. Previously on The Modern Rogue.
Keep going.
If this is G, then...
It shouldn't be. If it was tuned correctly, it wouldn't be.
Wait, so
there's this thing called the CAGED system, and that doesn't mean anything other than it's CAGED. Are we back?
No, keep going.
Oh my God, how much?
Guys, I don't know that we're gonna learn anything about guitars. Give me a build-up and a ka-chunk, and then quiet. And then...
Okay.
We now return to The Modern Rogue. All right, so tell me about the CAGED system.
All right, the CAGED system. Let me tune this.
So they go out of tune pretty quick?
Yeah, especially if they're bad. Actually, what's...
We have another guitar. Should I have this one?
I realize that one's not mic'd, correct?
All right, well, I'll just play pretend. I'm just jealous. I want to hold something.
He's just got to hold one, too. There's this weird thing about strings where if they're brand new, they go out of tune like crazy.
Yeah.
And if they're old, they go out of tune like crazy. So you really only get this little sweet spot.
How long of a sweet spot?
It really depends. There are musicians who they change their strings every single night, but their guitar tech before the show is beating the crap out of the guitar.
Just to get the wiggles out.
Exactly.
So it'll last like the 30 to 90 minutes.
Yeah. All right, so the freaking CAGED system.
Yeah, assume I know the basic chords.
Yeah. So the basic skill is if you know the basic shapes of the chords on a guitar tuned standard, which this one is. You've got your C, A, G, E, D, and then you've also got the minor variants. So there's like E minor, A minor, D minor are kind of the main shapes in that.
Now, why doesn't B or F show up in that?
Because it doesn't.
Well, the F makes sense because to even do an F, you have to do a
But that's
complete...
okay. But so that's the thing. That is actually already part of the CAGED system.
Oh.
So what you're actually doing is an E shape.
I'm doing an E shape just with the neck moved down, and that's why, and if you just want to hit these first two, that's why it's a power chord, right?
Exactly. So basically, your E shape could be this, and now this is an F, and all you've done is essentially, you could get the exact same effect by tuning all of these. Yeah, you capo, or you tune everything a half step higher, or fret up. And so that's like the very beginning of it is all of your bar chords are just E's higher. And so an F minor is the same thing. This your E minor, now it's an F minor. And so as long as you learn what the notes are up and down the fret, now it's, you know, this is also an E minor, or an E major, because that's... So you can already get with that, but also the A shape, you're not technically playing the sixth string, so the same thing, you can do all those shapes.
Oh, got it.
So like this is now an E, but with the A shape. And so now this is the same chord as this.
But back to my question, why are B and F not included in the CAGED?
Because they just don't have independent shapes naturally for your hand.
Got it. So F
is
just a stepped up E.
And B is just a stepped up A.
Ah, okay. When you pitch this, the CAGED system, as I understand it, is, say you know how to dance up here, knowing this system allows you to dance all over.
Yeah, so...
Hey, Brandt Hughes here. I was just editing this video and I was a little overwhelmed with all the info. And then I realized that a lot of this conversation is aimed for people who have some familiarity with the guitar. I feel like it will be useful to rephrase some of what was just said, but then also add a little bit of just basic context for those of you who have never played guitar before, or maybe you're like me and you have played a little bit, but it's been some years since you've touched a guitar and you just need a refresher. So when you first learn how to play guitar, typically one might start with learning open chords. Jordan listed these off earlier.
You've got your C, A, G, E, D.
And these are called open chords because some of the notes are strings that you don't put your fingers on and you just let them ring out so you're not closing them off with your fingers. They are open chords. Once you have learned some of these open chords, you can kind of strum along to some things. You can start building a little bit of basic song structure, but all of these are right at the top end of the neck of the guitar. So really, you're only able to play, a handful of notes at this point. But what happens when you want to play any of the other notes. Guitar has a bunch of notes that you can play. There's something like 125 or something like that. Well, one way that you can make sense of all of it is by using something like the CAGED system. A simple example is you're playing a song in C major. So you might start by using the C chord up at the top. That's in C major. But you don't want to be trapped up at the top and just playing those handful of notes. So what you do is you can play an A chord, slide it down so the top of the A chord connects with the bottom of the C chord, and this is actually in C major. So it's no longer an A chord, you're just using that A chord shape. And then if you want to go further down the neck, you use a G chord and you connect the top of the G chord to the bottom of the A chord. That's also in C major. And then you use an E chord, connect that. And then you use a D chord, you connect that. And of course that spells out CAGED. That's where it gets its name from, and that pattern just keeps repeating. So if you want to connect to the bottom of a D chord, you use a C chord, and then an A, and then a G, and an E, and a D. The CAGED system is just a pattern of chord shapes that allows you to sort of mentally designate certain zones along the neck of the guitar to help you easily find notes that are in the key that you're playing, no matter where your hand is along the neck. Ultimately, it is an organization system that allows you to see the structure and relationship between notes. Well, hopefully I explained that reasonably well. Jordan is much more knowledgeable about this than I am, but I felt like that just like a little bit of extra context might be helpful for some of you, and hopefully it'll make the rest of this conversation easier to follow.
If you're playing a G, the rhythm guitarist, the pianist, whatever's playing a G, and you wanted to play something that didn't just sound like you were doing the same thing but slightly offbeat or whatever, like just two dudes slamming. What you could do is this is also a G but with a D shape, and now if you're playing a G and I'm doing just like...
You don't want to do exactly that the entire song long.
Not necessarily, but even honestly this, if one guy's going like this, now they're doing a C. If you were going like... It would sound so much more pleasant and dynamic.
Was that a full octave you went up?
No, this is a G chord with a D shape, and this is a C chord with a D shape.
Awesome. Long after this lesson, when I forget and I'm trying to reconstruct it, what should I remember?
What you really need to know are what the notes are, like 0 through 12 on the two lowest strings. Well, really every string if you can swing it, but which takes some time, granted. But what you can do is take things like, okay, this is my G chord here. So if I wanted to use this shape for another chord, say a D chord, I could bring it up to here because this is a D. That doesn't exactly sound right, but what I can remember is that this is the top part of a G. So now I'm using the G shape to play a D chord, but it sounds so much different from me just hitting a D chord.
So I guess really you learn the basic chords and you get so good with them, so automatic that you're no longer looking. And at this point you just experiment with, I assume you're not counting the number of frets up or anything.
Well, I am right now because, there's no LED lights on this guitar.
I swear, man, come on, Amazon. You gotta pay off this bit. I have no idea if this is a good guitar or not, but here's what I do know. It has lights embedded all the way up and down. I ordered a MIDI cable. Like, all I want to do is plug it in and see if it lights up.
Yeah.
Wait,
so where does it light up?
There are LEDs all the way down.
But in the
yes,
fretboard?
Yes.
I still
you
don't understand.
Believe me, right?
Well, I just don't
hope
get it.
this cable arrives.
No, but like it's a way to start working your way towards lead guitar stuff. So like one way to think about things is I learned all these songs by this guy, and he was taking the rhythm guitars down here going like na 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 na, but the lead guitars up here going like. And so it's just playing with the same chord that he's doing, but because it's in a new place and you can like kind of play around it, it feels like a whole new thing. Or like you can just take the minor top 4 strings, like for example, this would be a B minor. So it's the same thing, but now you could build a riff out of that. And now it's just going to sound very complimentary. So it's just a way to begin taking, okay, I know the song is GCD. But instead of me just wanting to do those chords until we all die, you can find a way to say, okay, so if it's literally G, C, D, I can go here, 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 and now if I start stringing all that together, it's already just more dynamic and interesting, especially if you're playing with another guitarist who is handling the basic chords and you want to start figuring out how to do a solo or to be a lead or anything like that.
So the bassist is doing the simplest of them. It's literally just hitting A, G, A, C, and A, right? And so that's one, and then the two would be the full chord with the rhythm guitar.
Sure, or the power chord too, you know.
But then this makes this the spicy one where it's still playing by the same rules, but I can only mostly guess that it's going to be a C something or other.
Yeah, it's a really fun way to start figuring out new shapes and new sounds and new riffs and all this stuff. So like, do you know the song When You Were Young by the Killers? He doesn't look a thing like Jesus. So he's taking this like C-shaped chord, and it's already a little bit different, but he's just taking it and going. And now it's just, he's found a shape that he can use in multiple spots. And you hear the movement and the dynamism of it, but he doesn't have to do anything.
So if you were to collapse the system down to a couple of sentences, what would it be?
I would say is it's a way to find any chord anywhere on the guitar and to have options, 5 options or more options of ways to phrase it, which is just to say, to take the same chord, the same thing, and just present it in a new way. And then it allows you to play with it in a way that some of these main chords do not let you.
What is the system?
I guess the system is just recognizing that these are the shapes. There are actually a lot of different shapes.
So in other words, the aha epiphany, if we're going to reduce it, is you learned these chords. What if these chords didn't exist, but instead there were only 5 shapes?
Right.
With 2 variant flavors.
Yeah. And then, there's like the minor version, or 3 minor versions of it, like A minor, E minor, D minor.
Right, okay, so in that case, reduced to the shapes. So the shapes would be a block of 3, the cascade, I'll think of it, and then a triangle.
No, it's a great way to think of it.
E, I can't think of it anything other than an E.
It's like
the easiest.
Clawing, and also, you need to break your mind a little bit of, again, I'm not going to play this, well, this would actually sound pretty good. But you're not going to play this C up here because you physically, like, to get all the, like, that's just inelegant. It's not very pretty. But what you can do is you can grab pieces of it, and now you're playing up here, or you can grab, and also the shapes go into each other. Technically, secretly, the C shape is, or the D shape is just the C shape moved up to here. So if you took a C, if you had a capo there, that's the same thing as just playing that.
It sure is. So really, a block, a cascade, and a G.
You're like starting to confuse me with your, I mean,
sorry, no.
It's a good way to think about it.
This is my non-musical brain. Like, if I could, it would be a setup, a punchline.
No, it's actually, it's worth thinking through it that way. But it's like, you don't need every part of every chord. You just start to see, okay, so if they're playing in D, this that Fallout Boy, the Sugar We're Going Down, he's taking the A shape of a D, which is that, and then he's just playing notes near it without going anywhere or doing anything. So
that's an interesting game that I hadn't considered. Because, like, again, you could just hit one note, but I want to hear you, dance away from that a little bit.
Yeah, as you got better at playing those basic chords, you would start to do stuff like, you would find new shapes and new voicings. But this is just letting you use that in more of a lead guitar way. You were playing Blackbird earlier?
Yeah.
A lot of that, I bet if we went chord by chord, you would basically, they're just finding new shapes and new voicing.
Well, and unfortunately, because all I cared about was the end result.
Yeah.
For example, we see this in YouTube. There is, sorry, I've had YouTube on the brain lately, but like there's a trend for crappy room tone mics and and dudes under fluorescence writing on whiteboards, right? That became an aesthetic and a look is because genuinely badass multimillionaires who don't give a rat's ass about YouTube started spouting off genuine wisdom with low production products. And so people began to associate, oh, that must be where the good stuff is. And so then they would put on the trappings of those things, try to do it.
Right.
So likewise, you know, hear Blackbird by Paul McCartney, and I'm like, that is a good song. Let me operate the buttons in the same way.
Yeah, because I think the hardest transition for a guitarist is saying, I play my shapes and they're all, you know, within the 3rd fret down. And how do I get up here? It's like, yeah, you could start to learn Black Dog or something by Led Zeppelin, but you're not really understanding why they're hitting all those notes. It sounds cool, but those are kind of just riffs that are disconnected. My introduction to this system was actually, I stumbled upon it by accident, only trying to, when I was in high school, I played guitar, but then a friend of mine asked if I wanted to join a band. And they actually played out and they did real shows. And I didn't know what the heck to do, so they were writing all this original stuff. And so now I was the lead guitarist for this band, and they would just say, here are the chords, that's that I'm playing on the guitar, make something cool. And I really had no experience with that. And the first thing that I remember is they did, and I was like, okay. And then I found out that these notes seem to correspond, and so I was, and I wasn't even doing anything interesting, but already it sounded dynamic, and then I was like, oh, I don't have to strum it, I could like, and now it's like a lick, it fits in the song, and all I'm doing, just to show what that was, those chords were G, D, E minor, and then, well, I guess it went back to D technically. And so I'm taking the D shape for the G. It is confusing to talk about. And then taking like the A shapes of the other chords and
I would
walking
imagine
around.
at some level of internalized mastery, you stop even thinking in terms of letters that represent chords, or you stop even thinking about chords. You think like, for example, I don't bother to translate into language what my body does when it corrects its balance on a balance beam. Is like, oh, do that, yep, that's right. And I assume the music becomes like that.
Well, yeah, you start to be able to feel things out, and I think the reason I felt like it's valuable to talk about is because I think it just sort of, if you're at a certain level of guitar where you know some chords, you can bang them out, but you sort of want to be able to play with other people. You sort of want to write your own ideas a little bit, or you want to learn other songs and you kind of want to see how they're piecing it together. I think it's really fun to start thinking through this kind of system because I think it just opens you up in a lot of different ways. Because another thing with this is like, okay, so this is the G version of a D. This is your G shape, you've slid it up, and now it's D. But this is also, if you were playing a pentatonic scale, like it's all notes in that scale. So now you're taking, even if you have learned like, you know, I don't know, I can play notes in the scale, you could also hit the chord that's sitting there where you already are, and it's gonna sound kind of cool.
Where can people get more thoughtful nuance about the depths of harmony?
Well, and we did an entire rock song about leprechauns on our channel.
What channel was that?
Dr. Jordan Breeding. We mostly talk about movies, but every once in a while I'll try and sneak guitar in because that's still secretly what I wish I had done with my life a little bit. But I didn't have a LED light guitar, so.
I swear,
I still don't.
Amazon's gonna show up 80 minutes. It's gonna be great.
This video was supported in part by viewers like you over at patreon.com/modernrogue, where you can watch the unedited multicam version of this video and the previous video with Jordan because it was all just kind of one stream of consciousness that happened all at once.
All right, we're plugged in.
Oh no. What a terribly disappointing end to the episode. Add to cart.
Oh, it's $20.
Ah, screw it. Now I have to know.
Next time I come back here, you're going to be incredible at guitar because you've been shredding with fret.
You know what? Let's hope that's the case. 32-bit only, not compatible with 64-bit systems. That means we just paid for software they ain't gonna run. For a driver, they ain't. All I wanted is the damn lights to.
Wow. Oh, it's alive.
What?
Lit.
Oh, it did it! Oh no! Damn it! You guys got me.
It's lighting up right where he's playing.
Man, no, it should be
Incredible.
red lights all the way down.